Cadet Kim Hanna stepped off the transport shuttle and onto the metal floor of the Galactic Defense Academy. The huge space station stretched out in every direction, bigger than any city she had ever seen. Lights blinked everywhere, and strange sounds echoed through the halls. She looked around at the other new cadets. Most of them were twice her size, or more. There was a blue creature with 4 arms that sparkled like diamonds. A red lizard person with scales that changed colors stood nearby. Another being floated in the air instead of walking, its body looking like it was made of silver mist. Hannah was barely 5 feet tall. Her black hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and she wore the same gray uniform as everyone else. But on her, it looked too big. She had to roll up the sleeves. "Look, another human," said a voice behind her. She turned to see a massive creature with thick purple skin and yellow eyes. It had to be 8 feet tall, and looked like it could crush a car with its bare hands. They keep getting smaller every year. Other alien cadets laughed. Hannah said nothing. She had heard worse things during the 2 years it took her to qualify for the academy. Humans were considered weak by most of the galaxy. Their technology was basic. Their strength was nothing special. Most alien species saw them as barely above animals. But Hannah was here. That had to count for something. She followed the crowd into a huge room with a curved ceiling that showed the stars outside. Hundreds of cadets from dozens of different planets filled the space. Some breathed different gases and wore special masks. Others had extra eyes or strange limbs. A few looked almost human but had skin that glowed or hair that moved like it was underwater. At the front of the room stood Admiral Karoth. He was from a warrior species called the Zenthari. His gray skin was covered in scars, and his 4 arms each ended in claws. When he spoke, his voice was deep and rough. "Welcome to the Galactic Defense Academy," he said. The words came through a small device that translated his language into something everyone could understand. "You think you are the best warriors from your worlds. You are wrong. Half of you will fail in the first month. More will quit before the year ends. Only the strongest, the smartest, and the most dangerous will graduate." He walked back and forth in front of them, his claws clicking on the metal floor. "The galaxy is full of threats. Pirates who destroy entire star systems. Monsters that eat planets. Ancient machines that turn living beings into slaves. We are the only thing standing between civilization and chaos. If you are weak, you will die. If your fellow cadets are weak, they will get you killed." Hannah listened carefully. She had studied the Academy's history. Less than 30% of cadets graduated. The training was designed to break students both physically and mentally. Most species sent their greatest warriors, the strongest, fastest, and most aggressive members of their kind. Humans sent whoever scored highest on the tests. "Your first exercise begins now," Admiral Karoth announced. "Combat simulation. Individual matches. Step forward when your name is called." A holographic list appeared in the air. Names in dozens of languages scrolled past. Hannah saw her name near the bottom. Kim Hannah Terra, human. She watched as the other cadets fought. The blue crystal being moved faster than her eyes could follow. The floating silver creature could become solid or gas at will. A green reptile with 6 legs could climb walls and ceilings like gravity didn't exist. Each fight took place in a small arena with energy barriers. The weapons were not real, but the pain was. Hannah saw cadets knocked unconscious, thrown across the room, or beaten so badly they had to be carried out by medical robots. When her name was called, the room got quiet. Many of the alien cadets had never seen a human fight before. They expected her to lose quickly. Her opponent was a Krillian warrior named Vextai. He was the one who had made fun of her size earlier. He stood 7 feet tall and weighed at least 400 pounds. His thick skin could stop most weapons, and his strength was legendary even among his own people. Hannah walked into the arena. The energy barrier came up around them with a soft, humming sound. She was given a basic energy sword, the same weapon as her opponent. In Vextai's huge hands, it looked like a small knife. In hers, it was almost too big to hold properly. "This will be over fast," Vextai said, grinning to show teeth like broken glass. The signal to begin flashed green. Vextai charged straight at her, raising his sword high. It was exactly what Hannah expected. She had watched him fight 3 times already. He always did the same thing, use his size and strength to overwhelm his opponent quickly. But Hannah didn't run or try to block. Instead, she stepped to the side at the last possible moment. Vextai's sword hit nothing but air. His momentum carried him forward, and he stumbled. Hannah struck once, quickly at the back of his knee. Vextai went down hard. The arena fell silent. In less than 10 seconds, the smallest cadet in the academy had defeated one of the largest. Admiral Karatha's yellow eyes fixed on Hannah as she walked out of the arena. For the first time since arriving at the academy, she allowed herself a small smile. 3 months later, Cadet Kim Hannah stood on the bridge of the academy training ship called Nexus Prime. She had proven herself in combat class after combat class. Other cadets no longer laughed at her size. Some even seemed afraid of her. The ship was huge, bigger than most cities on Earth. It carried 2,000 cadets and crew members as they traveled between star systems for training missions. Today, they were in deep space, far from any planets or space stations. Unknown contact ahead called out Lieutenant Rex from his station. He was a tall, thin alien with blue skin and large black eyes. Ship is not responding to our signals. On the main screen, Hannah could see a dark shape floating in the emptiness of space. It was massive, maybe 3 times the size of their own ship, but it looked old and damaged. Parts of its hull were missing, and no lights showed anywhere on its surface. Admiral Koroth walked onto the bridge. His 4 arms moved as he studied the readings on different screens. "How long has it been here?" he asked. "Energy readings suggest thousands of years, sir," replied the ship science officer. "Maybe longer. The metal is unlike anything in our databases." Hannah moved closer to get a better look. Strange symbols covered the ship's hull. They seemed to move and change when she looked at them directly, making her eyes hurt. "I know those markings," said Cadet Thane, a tall creature with gray skin and 3 eyes. His people were known for keeping records of galactic history. "That is a Devourer's ship." Everyone on the bridge went quiet. Even Admiral Karatha's scarred face showed fear. "The Devourers vanished in the galaxy 10,000 years ago." Thane continued. "They consumed entire planets, whole star systems. Nothing could stop them. Then one day they just disappeared." "Disappeared or died?" asked the Admiral. "No one knows. But every civilization in the galaxy was glad they were gone." Admiral Koroth thought for a long moment. Then he turned to face the cadets. "This is a training opportunity. We will board the ship and explore. Team leaders will be myself, Commander Lee, and Lieutenant Voss. Each team will have 8 cadets." Hannah raised her hand. "Sir, I volunteer for the boarding party." Several alien cadets laughed. "Let the human go first," said one. "She can check if it is safe for the real warriors." But Admiral Koroth nodded. "Kim Hannah, you are with my team. Park Jayan, you as well." Park Jayan was the only other human cadet at the academy. He was tall and thin, with nervous eyes that were always moving. An hour later, Hannah found herself in a small shuttle heading toward the dead ship. She wore a combat suit that would let her breathe in space and protect her from radiation. The energy rifle in her hands felt heavy and unfamiliar. The shuttle docked with an airlock on the side of the ancient ship. The doors opened with a loud grinding sound. Emergency lights flickered on, casting red shadows down long corridors. "Air is breathable," reported the shuttle pilot. "Gravity is working too. Someone wants visitors." Admiral Koroth led the way into the ship. The corridors were wide enough for 5 people to walk side by side. The walls were covered in the same moving symbols they had seen outside. But worse, there were scratch marks everywhere. Deep gouges in the metal, like something with huge claws had been trying to get out. They passed room after room filled with strange equipment. Most of it was broken or covered in dust. But in one room, Hannah saw what looked like feeding chambers. Hundreds of them, lined up in rows. Each one was big enough to hold a person. "What do they feed on?" whispered Park Jayan. "Everything," answered Thane. "Plants, animals, metals, energy. The Devourers could consume any kind of matter, and turn it into more of themselves. They reached the center of the ship. Here, the corridors opened into a vast chamber with a ceiling so high it disappeared into darkness. And filling the chamber were pods. Hundreds of them, each one the size of a small house. "Hibernation chambers," said Admiral Karoff. "They have been sleeping." The pods were made of the same strange metal as the ship. But unlike the rest of the vessel, these were not covered in dust. They hummed with power, and soft lights blinked on their surfaces. "Life signs are minimal," reported one of the alien cadets with a scanning device. "Whatever is inside has been asleep for thousands of years." That was when Park Jae-hyun made his mistake. He stepped too close to the nearest pod and touched its surface. The pod cracked open. What came out was not like any creature Hannah had ever seen. It was huge, maybe 12 feet tall, but its shape kept changing. Sometimes it looked solid, like black metal with razor edges. Other times it seemed made of liquid shadow that moved against gravity. It had no eyes that she could see, but it turned toward them immediately. When it opened what might have been a mouth, the sound that came out was like breaking glass mixed with screams. 3 cadets died in the first 5 seconds. The devourer moved faster than thought, flowing across the chamber like spilled oil. Its touch dissolved armor, weapons, even the metal floor. "Run!" shouted Admiral Karoff. Everyone fled toward the entrance. Everyone except Hannah. She stood perfectly still and watched the creature hunt. Admiral Karoff found Hannah 6 hours later, sitting calmly in the command center of the dead ship. The devourer lay on the floor beside her, not moving. It was still alive. She could see it breathing, but it seemed peaceful, almost tame. "What did you do?" the Admiral asked. His 4 arms were tense, ready to fight or run. "I fed it," Hannah said simply. She did not look afraid. It was hungry. It had been asleep for thousands of years. When it woke up, all it knew was hunger. "Fed it what?" "We saw it kill 3 cadets." "I fed it curiosity," Hannah explained. "Humans do something no other species does. When we see something dangerous that we do not understand, we want to learn about it. We move closer, not further away." The devourer had never experienced that before. Admiral Karoff stared at the sleeping creature. In all his years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. A human cadet had somehow made friends with one of the most feared predators in galactic history. "It stopped trying to eat me when it realized I was not afraid," Hannah continued. "Fear tastes familiar to it. But curiosity? That was something new." Word of what happened spread quickly through the Galactic Military Command. Within days, a special transport arrived carrying Commander Lee Miho, one of the few high-ranking human officers in the fleet. He was a serious man with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "The High Command wants to know how you did it," Commander Lee told Hannah as they sat in a private meeting room. "More importantly, they want to know if you can do it again." He placed a data tablet on the table between them. The screen showed star maps with red marks scattered across several sectors. "Colony ships have been disappearing along the outer rim," he explained. "Not destroyed by pirates or raiders. Consumed. Completely. Ships, cargo, crew, everything. Gone without a trace." Hannah studied the map. The red marks formed a pattern, like dots connected by invisible lines. When did this start? Reports go back 50 years, but the rate has increased dramatically in the past 6 months. Something is feeding out there, and it is getting stronger. Commander Lee touched the screen, and new images appeared. Photos of star systems that looked wrong. Planets that were just empty spheres of rock. Suns that burned too dim. Space itself seemed somehow thinner in these areas. "The Galactic Council believes we are dealing with something beyond our current understanding," Lee continued. "Every military expert says the situation is hopeless. Run or die are the only options." But Hannah was still studying the patterns. Her finger traced lines between the red marks. "This is not random hunting," she said. "Look at the spacing. Look at the timing. This is farming. Farming. Something has been cultivating parts of the galaxy for a very long time, like a farmer who plants seeds and waits for them to grow. Now it thinks the crop is ready to harvest." Commander Lee leaned forward. "What kind of crop?" "Civilizations. Entire species. It has been watching us develop, letting us spread across the stars, build cities, create technology. And now it has decided we are ready to be consumed. That night, alone in her quarters, Hannah read through classified files that Commander Lee had given her. Reports from ancient civilizations, some so old their languages had to be translated by computer. But they all told the same story. Long ago, before any of the current galactic powers existed, there were others. The first ones, some called them, being so powerful they could reshape reality itself. Most had vanished into other dimensions or simply faded away as the universe grew older. But not all of them. Some had chosen a different path. Instead of leaving or dying, they had learned to feed on the universe itself, on matter, energy, time, space, even on the concept that held reality together, the world eaters. According to the ancient texts, they moved between galaxies like farmers moving between fields. They would arrive in a young galaxy, plant the seeds of life and intelligence, then wait. For millions of years, they would sleep in the dark spaces between stars while civilizations grew and spread. And when those civilizations reached the perfect point of development, advanced enough to be nutritious, but not so advanced they could resist, the world eaters would awaken and harvest everything. The files said they had done this countless times before. Entire galactic clusters had been consumed, leaving nothing but empty space where billions of worlds once existed. Hannah closed the files and looked out the window of her room at the stars. Somewhere out there, one of these ancient beings was waking up. It had been patient for millions of years, watching species like humanity crawl up from primitive worlds to become spacefaring civilizations. Now it was hungry, and according to every expert in the galaxy, there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. The world eaters were forces of nature, like black holes or supernovas. You could run from them, but you could not fight them. But Hannah remembered the devourer, sleeping peacefully after she had offered it something it had never tasted before. Maybe, she thought, the experts were wrong. Maybe everything could be negotiated with if you just understood what it really wanted. The alarm started screaming at exactly 0347 hours, Galactic Standard Time. Hannah woke up immediately and ran to the nearest observation deck. Through the thick glass, she could see the emergency lights of dozens of ships flashing in the darkness. "All hands to stations," came Admiral Karatha's voice over the communication system. This is not a drill. In the command center, chaos ruled. Officers ran between stations while screens showed data that made no sense. Chief Analyst Choi Yuna, a young woman from Earth, stood at the main console with her face white with fear. "The Kepler colony is gone," she reported to Admiral Karath. 3 million people. Just gone. Gone how? The Admiral demanded. Pirates? System failure? No, sir. I mean gone. Completely. The planet is still there, but empty. The cities, the people, the atmosphere, everything living has vanished. Even the metal in their buildings has been consumed. On the main screen, images appeared from the Kepler system. The planet looked like a gray ball of rock. No clouds, no oceans, no sign that life had ever existed there. But the strangest part was the space around it. Something was wrong with the emptiness itself. It looked darker than normal space, as if light was being pulled into it. "Energy readings are impossible," reported another officer. "Whatever did this is not just eating matter. It is consuming the basic structure that holds reality together." That was when it showed itself. The thing that emerged into normal space near Kepler defied every law of physics Hannah had ever learned. It was huge beyond comprehension, bigger than planets, maybe bigger than stars. But size was not the worst part. The worst part was that looking at it hurt. Her eyes could not focus on its shape, because it seemed to exist in more dimensions than humans could see. It moved through space like a shark through water, leaving nothing behind. Where it passed, even the vacuum of space looked somehow emptier. Stars in the distance flickered and went out as if the creature's presence was draining light itself. "By the ancient gods," whispered Admiral Karath. "It is real. The World Eater is real." Fleet Admiral Song Deo's voice crackled through the communication system from the main battle fleet. "All ships, full retreat. We cannot engage this entity. Repeat, all ships withdraw at a minimum safe distance." But Hannah was not looking at the retreat orders. She was studying the sensor readings on her personal tablet. While everyone else saw an unstoppable force of destruction, she was looking for patterns. The way it moved, the direction it chose, the things it consumed first. "It is not random," she said quietly. Commander Lee Miho, who had stayed at the academy to observe Hannah, leaned over her shoulder. "What do you see?" "Look at the energy signatures. It consumed the industrial centers first, then the population centers, then the natural resources. That is not the behavior of a mindless predator. It is selective, organized. It knows what it wants." On the screen, the World Eater began moving toward the core systems of the galaxy, toward the home worlds of dozens of species, toward Earth. "Admiral," Hannah said, standing up from her station, "I request permission to take a single fighter craft on a reconnaissance mission." The entire command center went quiet. Every officer, human and alien alike, stared at the young cadet who had just volunteered for certain death. "Absolutely not." Admiral Song's voice came through the speakers. "No one approaches that thing. We have seen what it does to anything that gets close." "Sir, with respect, running away has not worked for any civilization in the past 1,000,000 years, Hannah said. Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking. "Every species that has encountered a World Eater has tried the same strategy. Withdraw. Hide. Hope it goes away. How many galaxies has that strategy saved?" "None," Commander Lee said quietly. "According to the ancient records, none." The World Eater continued its slow movement toward the inhabited systems. Even from this distance, its presence was affecting their instruments. Reality itself seemed to bend around it. "It will reach the Centauri colonies in 6 days, reported Choi Yuna. Earth in 10 days after that." Hannah looked around the command center at the faces of the officers. Some were alien species that had fought wars for thousands of years. Others were humans who had survived the worst conflicts in galactic history. All of them looked terrified and hopeless. "There has to be another way," she said. "Every predator has patterns. Every hunter has weaknesses. Even this thing. What if it does not have weaknesses?" asked Admiral Karoth. "What if it truly is unstoppable?" "Then we are all dead anyway," Hannah replied. "But I do not think it is unstoppable. I think it is just something we have never tried to understand." She walked to the main screen and pointed at the World Eater. "Look at how it moves. It is not attacking randomly. It is following a plan. Something with a plan can be reasoned with. Something with a plan can be confused, redirected, or even negotiated with." "You want to talk to it?" Commander Lee asked. "I want to try something that no one has ever tried before," Hannah said. "I want to approach it not as prey running from a predator, but as one intelligent being trying to communicate with another." The World Eater continued its journey toward the heart of galactic civilization, unaware that for the first time in its ancient existence, something was planning to meet it halfway. Against every order from the High Command, Hannah slipped away from the Academy ship in a single pilot fighter craft. It was small and fast, barely bigger than an Earth car, with just enough life support for a few hours. She had stolen it during the night shift when most of the crew was sleeping. The fighter's engines were almost silent as she moved through space toward the World Eater. She could see it in the distance, a darkness that seemed to swallow light itself. As she got closer, her instruments began to fail one by one. The radio stopped working first, then the navigation system, then the weapons. But she did not need weapons for what she planned to do. The World Eater noticed her immediately. She felt its attention like a weight pressing down on her mind. Most creatures as ancient and powerful would have consumed her instantly without even thinking about it. But something made it pause. Maybe it was curious. In all its millions of years of existence, nothing so small had ever approached it voluntarily. Everything else had run away or tried to fight. This tiny craft was doing neither. Hannah opened her communication system, knowing the creature existed beyond normal language, but hoping that intention could cross the barrier between species. "I know what you are," she said into the radio, even though she knew it was not working. She hoped the World Eater could sense her thoughts somehow. "You are not evil. You are not a monster. You are just hungry. And everything you have ever met has taught you that eating is the only way to relate to other living things. The response came not in words, but in images that flooded her mind. She saw the history of the universe from the creature's perspective, billions of years of existence. Galaxy after galaxy consumed and left empty. Civilizations that rose and fell like waves on a beach. And loneliness. Terrible, infinite loneliness. The World Eater was the last of its kind, wandering through space for so long that it had forgotten its own name. It had tried to communicate with other species, but they always ran or attacked. So it learned to see everything as food, because that was the only relationship other beings would allow. But humans are different, Hannah continued, her small craft somehow holding position in the creature's massive gravitational field. We do not just survive in the food chain. We change it. We take wild wolves and make them into pet dogs. We take wild plants and turn them into crops that feed us. We look at impossible things and ask, what if we tried something new? The World Eater had stopped moving toward the core systems. For the first time in cosmic history, it was listening instead of consuming. Through the connection between their minds, Hannah showed it images of Earth, cities where millions of different species lived together. Humans sharing their homes with cats and dogs. Farmers working with animals to grow food. Scientists studying dangerous creatures not to destroy them, but to understand them. You do not have to be alone, she transmitted. You do not have to eat everything you touch. Let me show you what friendship looks like. Let me show you what it means to work together instead of just taking what you want. The World Eater's response shook her small ship. Emotions that had been buried for millions of years came flooding out. Curiosity, hope, and something that might have been relief. It reached out with senses that existed beyond the normal universe and touched her mind gently. For a moment, Hannah experienced existence the way the World Eater did. She felt the movement of galaxies like a slow dance. She sensed the birth and death of stars as easily as breathing. She understood that matter and energy and time were all the same thing, just wearing different faces. And she felt the creature's loneliness, so deep and old that it had become part of its identity. You do not have to be alone anymore, she said. There are billions of beings in this galaxy who would love to learn from you. Scientists who want to understand how the universe works. Artists who want to create beautiful things. Children who ask, why about everything they see? The World Eater began to withdraw from the core systems, not in defeat, but in something that might have been wonder. It had spent so long thinking of other life forms as nothing but food that it had forgotten they could be something else. Partners, friends, family. Through their mental connection, Hannah felt the creature's decision. It would not consume this galaxy. Instead, it would learn from it. It would find ways to feed that did not require destroying entire civilizations. And for the first time in eons, it would have companions who saw it as more than just a force of destruction. The galaxy held its breath as news of what happened spread through every communication network. The most feared predator in cosmic history had met something it had never encountered before, a species that refused to accept that some things could not be changed. Back on the Academy ship, Admiral Karoff watched through long-range sensors as the World Eater slowly moved away from inhabited space. Not fleeing, but giving the galaxy time to adjust to its presence. How? He asked Commander Lee Miho. She did what humans do best. Lee replied. She looked at an impossible situation and refused to accept that it was truly impossible. In the depths of space, Hannah's small fighter craft flew alongside the ancient being that had once terrified entire galaxies. Together, they began to explore what it might mean to rewrite the most fundamental law of existence, that the strong must always devour the weak. The food chain, it turned out, was not as unchangeable as everyone had believed.